What's going on, fam? L.A.R. movement still moving. Um, I did a video a few days back about Dwight Howard, and then I did a video about how people need to stop. Um, what is it? Stop sympathizing with single mothers, and I was talking about the mothers who specifically do dirt. What's up, pretty gangster? And Taz did a video di- digging into the whole Dwight Howard situation, which was a dope video. Um, and I started thinking about we never separate the difference between a dad who's actually a deadbeat from a dad who actually has to protect himself in the situation. And the reason I say that is because there's a difference, but they're in some ways looked at as synonymous. And what I mean by that is a guy who's a deadbeat does deadbeat stuff. And a guy that's trying to protect himself from not getting into a situation that might cause him extra harm can be looked as a deadbeat for doing that. And I was wondering, like, how often MCJ was popping. And I was wondering, like, how come people don't take those things into consideration? What I mean by that is this: you got a kid who is saying my dad don't spend no time with me. You got a you got a dad who doesn't want to spend time with a kid, and then you got a dad who does want to spend time with a kid. The guy that just doesn't is definitely a deadbeat. The guy that does, he could go over. Those are the guys who have all of the issues with um, moving the kid around, being this place and that place, and you know, playing a shell game or a custody type of game, as far as you want the guy to jump through hoops. So when a guy stops jumping through hoops, he's trying to protect himself. But that's going to be looked at as what? He doesn't he doesn't want to be spend time with his child. And those things are completely different. Unfortunately, two things can look the same from the outside and have two completely different um, build up to those situations. And see, the other thing I was looking at was Adrian Broner. Adrian Broner is a boxer, four-time four-time champion, well, in four weight classes. But Adrian Broner has a lot of kids. But he had an IG live where he's picking up one of his kids from school, and I thought about it like, you know what? You got guys who have multiple kids with multiple women, and they figure out how to make it work, right? And then you have guys who have multiple kids with multiple women, and um, they figure out excuses to not make it work. I've seen the guys who, like, listen, yeah, I got a kid or kids with you, but I got kids with somebody else. These are my kids. You know, it is, so I'm gonna be here, whether you like it or not. And they come to an understanding. But I've seen other guys who have multiple kids by multiple women um, pull a stunt where if I'm not smashing you, I'm not there. I'm gonna love this kid as long as I'm smashing you. If we ain't having a relationship, a sexual relationship, then I don't care about you like that. Don't care about the kid like that. So we're talking about two different types of men. Now, ironically, when I did the video talking about the situation with the Dwight Howard situation, I didn't know all of the ins and outs of the other things that were going on with them in the past. What's up, Ray? But what I do know is this: I'm not gonna call one parent uh, a scumbag and let the other parent off the hook for things that make you look like a scumbag also. So what I mean by that is this: if you ever notice, there are guys who who've gotten fed up with dealing with their exes, with baby mom, whatever you want to call it, and they just don't deal with them no more. And at the same time, they have a kid with somebody else, and they can deal with them because it's no argument and fuss and fight all the time. And nobody asks, well, why are you not willing to, you got a child with that person, so you should be able to, you should fight for that kid. And it's like, I definitely get that, but there comes a point where how much fighting is a guy supposed to do, for one, and because if he keeps fighting, because he's a man in that situation, and you're dealing with a woman and a child or children, you're going to automatically be looked at the biggest threat if you just become, fighting and fighting and fighting. And I remember talking about DeMarcus Cousins when he went off on his baby mama last year. See, even though the lady was dead wrong, it cost him more than it did her. And I thought about, you know, the 50 Cent situation, but I'm gonna make this about just fathers and dads in general. So there's a double-edged sword to it. If you're a father, you're a dad, you need to take care of your kids. You need to provide for your kids. And it's like, but then if you don't provide for your kids, you're looked at as a deadbeat. That's just a norm, right? But if you provide for your kids financially, then all of a sudden, that's not good enough. You need to be more involved, which I definitely understand. You need to be provide and be involved. That's how it should be. But what about the guys who will be considered deadbeats? Are guys who are not providing for their children, for one, and I'm not talking about the guys who can't. Like, there's some guys who become unemployed and they can't afford it, but then they get back employed and they afford it. I'm not talking about that. That happens. I'm not going to consider a guy who lost his job a deadbeat, because people lose jobs all the time. But a guy who's actively making sure he's ducking the responsibility of providing for his kids, that's a deadbeat. Definite deadbeat. But on the flip side, you have kids who are getting provided for, who wind up becoming entitled. And now they look at dad as a paycheck. You're just supposed to buy me this and buy me this and buy me that. You're not really supposed to be my dad. You're supposed to be my provider. And at that point, do you think that it's I personally look at it like, well, that's when the father has to protect himself, because now you're dealing with a situation where not only does an adult look at you as a paycheck, but a child looks at you as a paycheck, and that includes your own. So it's not it's detrimental, because at the end of the day, they're going to be reckless with whatever you give them, because they just under the assumption that you just got to give them stuff, and not giving them stuff makes you evil in that sense. But you got fathers who got to protect themselves by, you know what, at a certain point, and guys know what I'm talking about. Where you if you're paying child support or providing for your kid, and you beyond, but you still go above and beyond past that. You still do things past that because you want your child to have, experiences and opportunities. But then you realize the child only looks at you as a spirit experience or an opportunity. So now you got to be like, you know what? Whatever whatever I'm sending, you're gonna have to work with that now. Because now you're taking his parenting love and kindness for weakness. You can, oh yeah, I definitely get that, right? So there's a difference, you know, and now we're looking at it as um, these guys are deadbeats because they don't have the time, or now you have this issue. What I was saying initially was that happens with money. So when you get to time, now you have guys who are, they want to spend time with their children, and the guys who don't want to spend time with their children, they're deadbeats. They don't want they don't want no parts of any type of time. And I remember, and there are guys who kids wind up becoming adults, and then they want to spend time with them, and the kids are like, whatever. That's definitely that dad is definitely a deadbeat because when you had the opportunity, you didn't want it, and 9 times out of 10, the things that you chose something other than your child at a certain point. You chose something that was like, I'm not going to, I got other things to do. I got better things to do per se. So that's a deadbeat when it comes to time. But on the flip side of that, you got guys who are working, you know, working overtime. What's up, Mr. Brown? You know, working overtime, working a lot of hours. So they're making time after work, right? And when they're making time after work, then they go through all kinds of uh, games. And there comes a point where, are those guys considered deadbeats to you? Maybe. I don't consider them deadbeats. But because now, when you're getting away of people's time, you wind up making the situation dysfunctional. Khalil, what's popping? Rostas, what's going on? You wind up making the situation, other people wind up making it dysfunctional. So now this guy has to protect himself because he's like, listen, I can't I can't keep wasting my time trying to make time for you and your child, a dad and a daddy daughter, a daddy son relationship. What's up, Sister George? I was listening to you earlier. Yeah, I can't wait to hear y'all tomorrow. So it's a difference, because some of these guys are out here protecting themselves, but they're looked at as deadbeats because you don't say, okay, when he comes over, you know, you leave. And when he comes over, he calls, you answer to argue, or you don't answer at all. You FaceTime, no answer, or, playing games that you can't really have a conversation, that type of stuff. So at a certain point, this guy's gonna be protective of his time. Like, okay, I've been down this road, I know this is not gonna work out. So I'm not gonna do that anymore. So I'm gonna utilize my time to do something, utilize this time that should be for uh, a father and child for something else. People look at the guy like after a while, people start to go, he's not a deadbeat. He's actually been down this road. Same thing with how can I say this? Relationships. You got guys who are deadbeats, they get in relationships and they forget about their kids. You know, I'm in this relationship, you know, and for whatever reason, they'll play this game where they tell the new lady or the new woman that they got all of this drama that really doesn't exist, you know, but the relationship is their best excuse to say is their best sob story to keep their kids at bay or keep away from their kids, this, that, and the third. That's a deadbeat, you know. Yeah, I get what you're saying, MCJ. Now, on the flip side of that, guy can be in a relationship, and now all of a sudden, because he's in a relationship, it creates a beef with the child's mother, and it's there. It's on that side where it's like, since you with somebody now, then I'm not messing with you. So so this is where when people who have kids, some people are deadbeats because they don't want to deal with their own kids, but they'll deal with another the woman that they're dealing with kids. You know, but on the flip side of that, you got guys who, they can't. They wind up dealing with another woman's kids, but they can't even deal with their kids because they're with this woman, and it happens over and over and over again if they have multiple women. I mean, if they break up with one and then you know to get access to their kid again. At a certain point, you protect yourself if you're in that situation, and you're like, look, I want to be in a healthy relationship. I can't keep dumping people to keep to reclaim a relationship with your own child. That's not going to happen at a certain point. So then it becomes like, yo, what are y'all doing? Because that guy, nobody knows the full story. And here's a problem that most how can I say this? That deadbeat dads benefit from, and got and guys who are trying to protect themselves from the shenanigans lose out on. If you're a deadbeat dad, the narrative, you're not even around for the narrative because you don't even care. You get what I'm saying? But if you care about your child or children, you're trying to protect yourself by proving that you're not this negative entity. What's up, Chef? But the problem with that is, in proving it in some way, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, it could be taken as an admission of guilt. Like, you only being this nice to me because you know you a deadbeat and you trying to prove to me that you're not. Instead of under the I'm your father and I love you, that becomes an issue. So now the guy has to you put a guy like that in a position where he has to protect himself because he can't even love his child properly because it's under the guise that he's trying to prove that he's not a deadbeat father. So we have issue after issue with this stuff. See, let me see. Okay, I was on the phone. I had a little glitch or whatever. Uh, because the narrative becomes an issue. Then you got the dads who are deadbeats, and you can use the kids as a, you know, well, I couldn't be with you because your mama was crazy scenario, right? If you're deadbeat if mama was crazy and you never even tried. Because I don't care who it is. When it's a situation where it's a father and a mother who are at odds, both of them wind up doing something detrimental to the other. So both of them have a case. Now, the thing about it is, there's levels to everything. So whoever does the most shenanigans, that's who's probably the most at fault. Some people try to play this game where you cross me this one time, so I'm a give you the business for life. That's usually a person who out of their mind. But what you notice about quote unquote deadbeat dads is they'll use that your mama was crazy thing and never really have a history of actually trying to build a relationship with their kid, even under the uh, uh, quote unquote craziness of the mama. Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, chef. It's a lot of nuance. But on the flip side of that, the guys who are just protecting themselves, they like, I got a crazy baby mama. People start to see, yeah, this person's out of pocket. But the problem with that is guys become self protective because what I've noticed is the new people in your life can't believe it, so they have to see a crazy outburst till they go, oh. So what I mean by that is, you could say somebody's crazy, your mother might not believe you then until your mother sees it. If you got a brother and sister, they might not believe you until they see it. You got a significant other, they might not believe you until they see it. They got you got other family and friends, they might not believe it until they see it. And the problem with that is you're dealing with a bunch of different people who are are like who are so dug into the fact that, you know what, you might just be a deadbeat, even though I know you and I've known you and I know you're a good guy, but you could be this, that, and the third. This person can't be crazy. What's up, Paul? Trenton, what's popping? And then when multiple people see it, then it's one of the situations where the guy is like, yeah, they crazy and I can't deal with them. And then they have multiple people say, yeah, I thought, you know, he was just full of it. But this did happen and that did happen too, and this did happen too. Kind of scenario where um it's a domino effect. Yeah, you have to have proof. What's up, K Dot? So in this sense of it, it's like we're dealing with what aspect where some guys are deadbeats, but other guys have to protect themselves. Like when people say guys are abusive, that's interesting. Yeah, it's one. You messed up for that show. Ironically, this is how you know people are lying. When somebody says my dad's a deadbeat and they say they were abusive, those two things don't normally go together. Because when you say a guy's a deadbeat, you're saying he's not there, right? Or an, or if you add somebody was he abandoned us, or he's a deadbeat, or he's abusive. He doesn't have, even a deadbeat dad doesn't have the time to be abusive. He doesn't have the time. So at that point, that's got to be a lie. You get what I'm saying? Like that's and because nobody knows deadbeat dads who ain't been around their kids in 5, 10, 20 years, and he was abusive. I thought he said y'all said he left when that kid was like 2 or 6 or 7. How where was the abuse? It becomes one of those things where it's unreal. But then you got the kids on the flip side where dad has to protect themselves, because I was thinking about the scenarios where uh, a mother could whip their child. Dad, it depends. It's not so much. You get what I'm saying? Dad's not so much. Donnell, man, thanks, fam. I just saw that. Thank you. Um, a dad can't do that in these certain circumstances. And the issue with that is now a guy got to protect himself because now I can't even um, discipline my own child because of, how can I put this? I'm going to be labeled an abuser, even though this kid has bad habits. No, Lonnie, I get what you're saying, but that becomes a problem because I'll get into that in a second. I'll get into that second. You know, um, but what winds up happening is you got guys who, they whip their kid and now he's abusive. It's like, no, he's not abusive. He's parenting. The sped spoil a child thing seems to only be looked at properly if it comes in the aspect of a mom doing it. So now this guy has to protect himself because now I can't even discipline my child properly. So how am I supposed to be around this kid if I can't discipline him? So now we have an issue. Now he has to be protective of himself. And there's supposed to be a certain healthy level of respect and fear, that a child should have for their parent. You know, I get you on that, Jays. Michael, what's popping? CJ, what's going on? You just gotta see walk away. You terrible. So that's the difference between a deadbeat and a guy who's trying to protect himself. Those are two completely different things. Um, how can I tell you? When it comes to the situations we see publicly, like one of the things about the Dwight Howard situation that I didn't like when I found out is that people are upset, are basically saying, okay, one of his children's mothers died months ago, and his son is like, I hate you. I can see you there with your other kid, but you're not hanging around me. And it's like, wait, I definitely get the feeling, but are you telling me at some point you were basically taught to basically say, yo, because his mama died, really forget about him? You know what I'm saying? The only reason you there because his mama died anyways. I hate you right now because you ain't here for me and my mama here. That's that's a little too far as selfishness. You know, so now we're having a problem. And Lonnie, you said something that I just read, and this is an issue right here. You know, messing with your children's emotions is abuse. The problem with that statement is we don't have the same energy for mothers who do that on a regular basis. You know, that's not considered a deadbeat mom because most moms are the ones playing with these kids' emotions. It's not really the dad, deadbeat or not. It's really, uh, you know, the dads that do that are in a minority, but people definitely got a hatred towards them. They definitely get a visceral response. Moms play with kids' emotions all the time, and it's like, but she's a mother. But this ain't about mothers per se. You know, you know, dads, deadbeats versus protecting yourself. How can I say? When it comes to hatred for your dad, right? Deadbeat dads deserve whatever hatred you give them. They wasn't there. They didn't care to be there. So if you don't like them, that's very much so understandable, right? Those are the guys I can understand you don't respect. You don't respect. He wasn't there. He didn't want to be there. It is, and let me add this small caveat into all of this stuff. Gone are the days where people let you, where both parents let you see which how your parents are on their own. See, back in the day, they had that thing that normally grandparents instituted. You're not gonna talk bad about your mother or father in the presence of a of um of another grandparent, and they're not gonna let you talk bad about your parents, and they're not gonna let the adults talk bad about the parents, right? So if you had a bad parent, whether that be mother or father, they were gonna let you find out on your own, because that person, whoever they were at their core, that wasn't gonna change. So they can't help but show that to their kid at a certain point. So let me put that caveat in there. Now, when it get back to back when it gets back to hating your father, the fathers that have to is trying to protect, is protecting himself, is the father that, listen, the kid hates him, and the kid does things out of spite, and at that point, that creates a rift in a relationship, because now those fathers got to step back because the hatred is so strong. Do you really want to actually get into it with your own child as a grown man with a whatever age child? No, you don't. You know, so you got to fall back for whether it's in a situation that day or for a little time, because hateful kids that hate their fathers normally do things to publicly embarrass their dads, whether the dad is a deadbeat or the dad is just like, let me let this cool off. Normally the hatred's so strong, they publicly try to uh, uh, um, disrespect their dads. And the problem with that is it's weird to see a child trying to emasculate a grown man, not because it's a different dynamic. Like when a woman tries to emasculate a man publicly, people know if he responds a certain way, we're gonna have society like he's he went too far. He shouldn't have responded in that way because it's man to woman. What's up, Keenan? But if a child tries to emasculate a father, that's different, because that's gonna fall under the premise of, yo, you need to stay in the child's place. So now we got a whole nother issue going, right? So normally, to me, uh, appreciate it, appreciate it, Patrick. You know, so you got a whole nother issue, because the father who's trying to protect himself is not trying to really bust your behind in public in the first place, because fathers who care don't really want to blast you in public because you a child and you shouldn't have to deal with that, and they don't want you dealing with the response that you would get publicly even if you were out of line. But at the same time, a father that's a deadbeat will be like, oh, okay. Uh, that's fuel and cannon fodder to add to this QC. That's why I wasn't there in the first place, because he taught all this disrespect. No, 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 no. You're different. You're different. You didn't care to begin with. You're different. Now, I gotta bring something into this mix that some people are really not gonna like. Hustle, what's up, fam? There's a bunch of guys who can be looked at as deadbeats off the rip, and there are guys who could be looking at who are dads who could be looked at as protecting themselves off the rip from this same situation. When you wind up having a child with somebody who wanted to have a child for some type of leverage, whether it was financially to keep a relationship, or they just had baby fever and they wanted a child, and you find out you just a lucky sucker. you know. So what I mean by that is some guys aren't bright enough to protect themselves, you know, sexually all of the time. All right. And people slip up, men and women. I get that. But here's the issue. When a man winds up getting a woman pregnant who he finds out that baby is just a pawn in her game, or just it's just not necessarily a pawn in her game, but something that she wanted, regardless of who it was or what it was, he's looked at a deadbeat because he got used. And he does his response to getting used is, I don't even want to mess with you. So he's gonna be looked at as a deadbeat, straight up. Because you got that woman pregnant, so you got to deal with it. And people don't look at it from a different perspective, as in, if I knew you did, if how can I say this? If you got into a situation where you looked at it as a person set you up, you could never actually look at that person or deal with that person with respect, because you could not trust any of their actions. If the inception of your interaction with them wound up being a setup, is going to be all negative from that point on. You're gonna have to do some serious soul searching and get over it. You know, you have to, like the situation that happened with the young lady who um who killed the 3 year old. It's like the lesbian couple, right? She said they had been together for 4 years, but the 3 year old that the boy was 3 years old that she killed. I'm not going as far as guys saying, this is relationships as far as lesbian couples, but I'm saying that was, by the age, you could say something was wrong with those relationships initially. But going back to what I was talking about protecting yourself. Yeah, I definitely get that, Patrick. Uh, the guys who wind up being self-protective are looking at it like, listen, uh, I can't trust anything that you do now. See, we don't talk about the guys who wind up putting themselves on child support because they look at the person that they wind up getting pregnant as, okay, this is a sham to begin with. So let me put myself on paper, or put this all on paper, because this is not going to be a conducive situation to actually have a parenting or co-parenting situation relationship. So those guys are like protecting themselves. Derek, what's up? Oh, oh, hustle. You know, I don't. I'm gonna say this, hustle, to what you just said. So if anybody don't know what I'm about to respond to, what about weak dudes that impregnate chicks out of fear of losing them? I kind of talked about that earlier when I talked about the guys who can have multiple kids by multiple different women, but the only time they care about the kid is when they having sex with that particular kid's mother. A lot of from my experience, a lot of these guys aren't trying to get chicks pregnant out of fear of losing them. They're trying to get chicks pregnant so nobody else could want them. Because if I have 3, 4, 5 baby mamas, who gonna put up with these kids really? Who gonna, so I can always double, triple back to somebody, which is, ridiculous. You know, to me, you know, they are a scourge upon the planet. You know, so but let me press on. What about dad's deadbeat versus self-protective? When you come to growing up, and what I mean by growing up is some people have children at too young of an age to be mature, or they're grown but mentally immature. You become a deadbeat as a dad when you purposely don't want to grow up because you don't want to be responsible. You don't want to be responsible, so you purposely act like a little kid to the point that when your kids grow up, they realize they are more mature than you because you are stuck in arrested development because you want to be grown enough to have sex, but not grown enough to be an actual parent. That's a deadbeat. Even in that scenario, though, when you when you start seeing people who had kids young and they start maturing, with age, or they start maturing mentally, and they say, okay, I was young, I was dumb, I did this, I did that, and they come to the table like, look, I was out of pocket, completely out of pocket, and but what I'm gonna do is at this particular point, I'm gonna re-inject myself in this equation, and I'm gonna take the lumps that go with it because I deserve to get the slings and arrows if you decide to throw them. That is a guy who's actually, he's he's made the decision to fall on the sword because he made the mistake in the beginning, you know. But that guy could wind up also becoming protective of himself because if he comes to the point where he realizes that there is all I can do is get blamed for stuff, even if I'm trying to fix it, because the people involved just might, how can I say this, more so just want to be uh need he needs to be your scapegoat no matter if he's changed, even if he has changed, is what I'm saying. He needs to be the scapegoat even if he has changed to the point where he has to start to protect himself. Now, NBA young boy, no, he out of pocket. He out of pocket. Crackhead parents get it the worst. You know what? You crazy. NBA young boy is out of pocket. You know, I can't respect a person like NBA young boy because it's not his age and immaturity that's a problem. What's the problem is he comes off as the type of guy that sabotages his own situations with his own uh bad attitude, and then he gets nervous and scared about the outcome. Now the type of people if you meet in life who argue with everybody but always need a smoke break to calm their nerves. That's just ridiculous to me. If if you want beef with everybody, you can't you don't need a break to calm your nerves. Like, you're an idiot for that. But that's just my take on that guy. You know, quintessential drama king. um, but let me press on to something else. Mm, mm. You're a deadbeat if you create multiple kids with multiple women and you wind up in the same relationship over and over again. And what I mean by that is, if you got two kids by two different women, three kids by three different women, four kids by four different women, five kids by five different women, and you wind up in the same exact negative situation each time, it's you. It's not them. It's you. It's you. Because The flip side of that is if you have multiple kids by multiple women and say you don't get along with this one, but you get along with that one. And that's what it consistently is. You got three kid mothers, you got three women, three babies with three different women. If you get along with 2/3 of them, it's the third one. You know what I'm saying? It's the third one. That's what's going on. Uh, but if it's you got three and you only get along with one of them, it's you. Majority rules. You know what I'm saying? Majority rules. You know, yeah, I get that, Patrick. And that marriage, that's ridiculous. You know, that's where you got to go with that because, but the guy who has, uh, um, how can I say this? A good relationship, that the majority is good relationships. He's got to protect himself from the bad apple in the bunch. Some people don't like to hear that, but sometimes if you have multiple kids by multiple women, that woman is gonna wind up having some type of relationship with the other kid's mother, or mothers at the point. And at some point, either those women are gonna be able to get along or they're not. And when you're dealing with somebody who's not that good of a person, the other mother or mother is gonna be like, okay, I see what the problem is. Yeah, it's you. It's you. It's you. It's a beef. Now, oh, this is Stanford. Now, oh boy, this one is kind of tricky, but because I don't want to say this in a bad way. If you don't want, you're a deadbeat. If you don't want to be with your if you're a father who doesn't want to be with your child's mother, but when she get a man, now you want to be all in the mix because you don't want her to be with anybody. You a deadbeat because you only coming around because she's with somebody. You know, because if you wasn't coming around when she wasn't with nobody, and now she got a man, and now you popping up, you a deadbeat. You know, because you hoping that one day you could double back and hit that. What, Lonnie? He's a cool dude. You know, that's a good situation. That means he's okay. He don't pull out, but he okay. uh, but on the flip side of that, if you're a guy who your child's mother is in a relationship, you're like, hey, as long as you good, you happy, y'all do y'all thing. My only thing is, you know, this should not interfere with the relationship with my child. That, you know, that guy could wind up becoming a guy who protects himself because guess what can happen? You deal with certain people who get in a relationship and then um now they want to X out the father because, well, I got a man now. No, no, no. Just because you just got a boyfriend last week don't mean that that's the child's new daddy. You know what I'm saying? This is not life as the pappy. It's not that. And those guys got to protect themselves because now we got I said we, but now you got to go through that whole scenario of this how some dudes wind up getting into beefs with guys who are boyfriends for no apparent reason is because a guy wants to be a sucker and say, I'm the boyfriend now, I'm the new daddy now, step out of the way, young man. You lost your mind because now that could get a guy killed. You know, Lonnie, won't you spell like a person that went to actual school? T's on period. That thought spelling out of here. Is it right? I get what you're saying, Alfonso. And see, work, what's popping, you know. But see, that's part of what I was talking about earlier. There comes a point where some of these guys got to protect themselves from the situation. You can't constantly, if you think about it, like I can't call a guy a deadbeat. Don't judge you. Okay, I quit. I can't call a guy a deadbeat who, and part of what you're saying is, if I'm at the point I got to catch a case to deal with somebody, there are guys who actually put up with that for 18, 19, 20 years. And there are guys who are like, look, I didn't did that for 5, 10 years now. I'm not doing it no more. I'm done. I'm not finna, and people would call that guy debut. I can't believe you won't fight for your kid. Look, you're not supposed to be fighting for a kid every year. The same kid every year, every day, every month. That's not a healthy situation. I can't call a guy a deadbeat for that. You know, what's up? You know, so for me, I was just gonna shed light on what I thought about these things and situations. But I'm gonna end it right there because I want to chill out and watch a little Hulu. So thank y'all for rocking with me, everybody who showed up. Appreciate you for having me. Y'all have a great night. Peace.